Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition at Team Inkfinity podcast. And this special edition is Mo's joined us again. It's been a couple weeks. He's been really busy, and he's back. And that's the only news of the day. We wanted to have him back on, and so that's all there is to talk about, Mo.
Yeah, I'm taking shots for Mo.
Thanks for coming back, Mo.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. It's been a busy couple weeks, but it's not the only special occasion happening today. You know?
As you can see on the screen, we're just kicking this one off like directly with the info. This is a red alert. We had to come in and do a special episode because, as you can read, Disney Lorcana TCG bans 2 cards from competitive play. Those 2 cards consist of Hiram Fortisphere, the toy maker, and the steel item Fortisphere. So that's the massive breaking news that came today.
I want to cheers off to start this with a celebratory shot for what deck we are happy to exist again. Mo, what is this for?
You already know it. It's green purple, baby.
Woo! Purple is back.
I thought we were pouring one out for Hiram. When we discussed this pre-recording, you said you were pouring one out for Hiram for me. Now you're
never waste
taking a
soju
shot on his grave.
That. Yeah, I'm not gonna waste soju on that. Rhett's gone.
So yeah, I would imagine everybody has, or maybe not everybody, but the vast majority of people have probably heard the news today. We even went a step further than Bucky. While I would probably argue this is just as severe as Bucky and really is essentially the same fate, on paper this is a lot more severe because Hiram and Fortisphere are officially not playable in core constructed as of today, right? Because it's as of April 8th, which is today when we're recording this. So
yep.
He's officially no longer viable in any constructive competitive play.
Anyone who took it to their league night, you are cheating, disqualified, banned.
I actually did see a tweet from Harlan, who's UK time. So it's obviously a lot later in the day. And he was like, it was really fun locals today when 2 hours in.
He's like, we found out during locals.
Yeah, so that would be a very interesting one. You're like mid-game and you just play a Hiram and your opponent says, I can't play that. That's
Judge?
illegal.
Judge, can we get a judge over here?
That's a banned card, illegal.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, so that's official. We have our first official banned cards in Lorcana. So let's just go through everybody's quick opinions real quick. So Mo, kick us off here. What's your overall thoughts on the ban and kind of what the next thing to come after this announcement's going to be?
Well, Zach, Cody, today I woke up, the sun was shining, birds were chirping, and Flaversham's no longer a part of this game. I couldn't be happier. Oh my god. I have thought he's an unpleasant card to play against for quite a while. Like, unless you're playing red, he's always been just a pseudo-problematic card. I think this current metagame really just kind of put him over the top, or put Sapphire in general over the top. And I'm really excited to see what can come out of it now.
It's a fair point. I think that's probably the most common take I've heard today is that, it's just one of those unstoppable cards. And we'll get to the official announcement with some of the more, in-depth details as to why this was made in a second. But Cody, I know your team ban Hiram because we talked about this literally a couple days ago.
Yeah, literally, I feel like I manifested this. Just perfect timing. I feel like I've had something else like this recently in Lorcana where I predicted something before it happened, but I can't think where it was. I feel like as soon as I saw the announcement, I just had a extreme deja vu moment. I was like, oh, I knew this happened, But I was on the wagon of I think it needs to be Popsicle or Flaversham. I didn't know they were going to go for both of them. Well, Fortisphere, but I get their reasoning of why they wanted to maybe not ban 2 Sapphire cards in the same setting, and then also Popsicle is definitely way more of a Sapphire item card than Fortisphere doing whatever Fortisphere says. I'm pretty sure most of the time it says pay 1 to put it into your discard. So I don't even know what the other effect is. So not a huge loss there, but I'm definitely someone who likes to strive in the moment, and I'm really excited to see what's gonna come from this. Uh, Hopefully, there's not a end of the world apocalypse of birds, but we'll see.
I mean, he's
Oh,
already got it out. He's already brought it back. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like can understand on paper to your like point on why they wouldn't want to hit Hiram and Popsicle, you know, because it does like oppress one color combination or one color or one, you know, ink type more than anything else. And you know, while Fortisphere and Popsicle are in different ink types, they basically play the same, you know, ultimate style or, you know, purpose within the deck. And so it hurts a lot less, you know, one archetype because it's, you know, makes the card availability within the decks a little bit more wide range, because now you can play Sapphire and not have to play Steel to be able to have that one cost cantrip, where if you did it with, you know, Popsicle, then that would ultimately be the case. And so while I get it, it is kind of like, you know, in my eyes, like Fortisphere definitely got hit with a stray there. But you know, what's up on the screen now that I had flashed for a second is Steve Warner's like official post on why they chose these cards. And so, you know, Hiram specifically, that, you know, they just said has a lot of uninteractable advantage for the player, which I think is pretty much what Cody was, you know, said on the last episode, that it's just a very oppressive card, and it, you know, if you don't deal with it right away, then it's just going to continue to garner advantage for the player of that card. And so I get that. That makes a lot of sense. You know, I think there were fair answers, but to Mo's point, if you're not playing Ruby, then those answers start to dwindle very, very fast. And so I can understand it from that regard. And then like switching to the next slide, or I guess the end of it, it does start to talk about Popsicle and Fortisphere, where he says, you know, we did talk about banning Popsicle, but that, you know, does have a lot of, you know, synergies within the Sapphire-based decks, where, you know, Steel isn't necessarily supposed to be a quote item-based, you know, ink type, and so having the Fortisphere ban for that reason does more align the inks back to their supposed, you know, archetype or their supposed like, you know, synergy and overall strategy that you can have within it. And so I get, you know, again, I guess that makes a lot of sense. And then, you know, to wrap it up here, where, you know, he just kind of talks about, you know, this, you know, could be disruptive, and but hopefully this does allow some more creativity, which I think you two will probably both very much agree with.
Yeah.
you can finally play blue or Sapphire without having to put the rats in your deck,
Get it
because you're not allowed to.
I also, in the lines of Fortisphere, I think there had to be a way to make turn one Bell a little bit less oppressive of a play.
True.
And that's probably the best way to approach it without just completely removing Ruby Sapphire from the meta.
Yeah, and I guess I haven't like fully given all of my thoughts yet. I mean, I definitely agree with just about everything you guys have said, but my one, like, I guess, you know, argument for going a different route with a ban, or also, you know, trying to address Diablo at the same, you know, time as this, is that, you know, Bucky was very oppressive, and he was, you know, really hard to play against, and would only have gotten stronger over time as more Floodborne characters release. The problem with Bucky and Hiram are like the opposite end of the spectrum, though, because Bucky attacked your opponent, while Hiram, you know, just ultimately gives yourself a lot of advantage. And so I'm much more in the camp of like, you know, I don't want to just like make it a miserable time for my opponent. And so I'm much, you know, more in line with like understanding that one. And I feel like Diablo is kind of in that same boat, where it's, you have to dig to an answer, and the most, you know, efficient way to get an answer to, you know, get rid of one of your opponent's threats is to draw cards to find that answer. And Diablo just thrives off of that situation too. And so again, it's just one of those like oppressive cards that makes it harder to remove. And so I would have loved to see, you know, some sort of Diablo change, I guess, at the same time, because as Mo's very much like flashing for us, if you're watching on video, he has his Diablo ready to go, because the season of the bird has come back. It very much seems. So
Which I will say, because I do love the meme of joking around about Diablo gonna come back and be super annoying. I will say there is probably a other dark horse in this equation. Any guesses of who I actually wish they actually just talked about?
Does he say woof?
Prince John?
Did you say Wolf?
Does he say woof woof? Are we talking about Dark Horse deck? Or are we talking about another card? Problematic.
No.
He's
I'm
talking
talking
about
about-
other cards. He's talking
Yeah, I'm
about
talking about
another
another
like
card.
sleeper should have been dealt with.
Yeah, I
card.
think there should have been a third ban
Prince
to
John?
make sure everything. Yes, I
Okay,
100%
yeah.
think Prince John's going to be the most annoying part.
That's fair.
I feel like I. It's the same. It's the same thing about Flaversham, right? Like the best way to remove Flaversham was to, like what, brawl it, and then that takes up a huge turn. You know, you have to have that resource to do it. Only that one color has that direct answer, and then like even Steel, it has like what, Zeus, and that doesn't even take out Flaversham. So like that's my complete argument there. It was just a very powerful card, very hard to deal with for most decks. And then now I feel like the color that's going to benefit the best from this is probably Emerald aggressive strategies with Diablo. And we're kind of right back in the same equation where Prince John's going to sit around on the board. No one's ever going to be able to get rid of it. And you don't even have to exert it to draw your cards how you would with Diablo. You are going to, it's just going to sit there and make your opponent discard. So if anything, maybe we're back in the year of grab your swords. I don't know if that's going to be the big equation, but
I was actually that was like going to be the next point I wanted to bring up. I was like, obviously the best, most, I guess, efficient answer to deal with Prince John is grab your sword. The problem is that grab your sword has lost so much value in every other facet of the game. Because if you think of like the Chernodogs deck that we talked about in our last episode, everything minus 3 or 4 cards in the deck is an X4. And so you don't want to just play grab your swords into a bunch of 4 willpower characters that also has Rapunzel in the deck, because then that's just a massive risk for yourself to then go have all of your opponent drawing cards based off of that damage you just put on it just to deal with the one card. And so I just don't think that grab your sword has near the value across the board that it did, and you can't put an uninkable 5-cost card to deal with one card in the meta in your deck. But
Go ahead, Cody. Go ahead.
all I was going to say is, I mean, I will say we did just enter a brand new format. I will say the ban of Flaversham and Fortisphere is probably going to change the equation across the board everywhere. So, like, I have no idea what decks are going to look like tomorrow. I will start making them, but maybe Grab Your Swords is back. We don't know.
So, interesting thought. Like, when we look back at set 6, Green Steel was faltering a little bit. There was only like a few diehards showing like decent results on it, and for the most part, it kind of was getting phased out. And I think a lot of the reasons why are going to become strong again. I think songs are going to give Green Steel a big problem. I think the format's going to get fast again. And like,
I agree with
not
that.
that things haven't been fast, but when you're ending the game on turn whatever, playing this huge crab to get 1,000,000 lore in one turn is a little different than like Genie Turbo. But I do think we're going to go back and see a lot more aggressive decks come out, and decks that can counter that, like songs. And I do think the bird will be strong. I don't think it's going to be the end of times, though.
Honestly, if they were gonna, now that the more I think about it, like just ban Cove, like genuinely, you take Cove out of the equation, and like that fixes like all of these problems we're talking about. It assures grab your sword, hits Flaversham. Well, Flaversham's on the brain. Hits Prince John. It assures that it hits Diablo, and then you have a really solid answer to it. But Cove, makes those decisions a lot more difficult because you have to figure out how to take care of the Cove and the character at the same time. But so I mean,
I honestly think there could be a world where, and this is far off in the future, obviously, if we're seeing 2 cards flat out banned, but I think there could be a world where they lose their defensive keywords. Like Diablo without evasive is still a strong card. It still can sing on turn 2, but it's not like just going to sit there for days on days.
I do not support any erratas.
That's fair.
Let's ban the card or don't touch it.
Kill it.
I agree with that one, and it was funny too because we said last episode too. We said the next like teasing the next episode is going to be what should be the mode of trying to solve meta problems? Is it bans? Is it rotations? Is it erratas? And they kind of answered that for us, that bans is clearly the path that they've chosen to take. I would imagine, I mean, that's not to say there won't be rotations in the future, but I would imagine that if they were going to, start doing stuff like that, then that, would be a good time to announce a lot of different potential changes to the way that the meta is going to be handled, because, you're making a big announcement. It's the first of its kind. You might as well, lump a couple announcements into it and, hit it all at the same time. So the fact that they didn't makes me think that this is, kind of the format that they're going to stick with for, problem cards or problem meta, like tier 0 decks, if you will, that pop up. So
Yeah.
I feel like I will say to that, I actually feel like they probably will get on a better schedule for releasing this stuff, but I feel like they're kind of in the moment of updating everything. We're kind of making everything feel a lot more clean. Just doing announcements, getting everything set up for like in Asia and their tournaments, getting caught up there, like all the the new hires recently that they've been doing. I think they're just kind of getting prepared to be on a consistent schedule. So I don't know exactly what I'm expecting here, but I wanted to give a perspective for maybe people who aren't used to other trading card games. But like Magic the Gathering, very popular competitive card game, they have a kind of a reoccurring schedule of I think it's every so odd months. I don't want to say every 6 months, because I feel like it's a lot more than that. But they'll have a moment when they tell the public of hey, we are going to announce updates this day. Those updates could be literally nothing, or it could be something. So that's something that you can always be ready for. If there ever was a change, the date that it would happen on. It wouldn't just be a random Tuesday in the middle of league.
true.
So I really hope they do get to something like that, so people can have a plan of, oh, there's about to be this next big update. We'll see if they decide to make any changes right before a tournament.
Yeah.
But I know they're adapting, so I'm not too critical about that right now.
And it's I mean, that's an interesting point to bring up, because we also got we got some sort of communication from the new communications director for Ravensburger when it comes to Lorcana. And so basically you can see the tweet on screen, him talking about he's only been in the role for 5 weeks now, and obviously there's a lot of planning to ramp up from. And all of the subsequent communications and everything that come is getting, I guess, prepared, if you will. And so I would imagine that they're trying to build out a plan so that they don't say something and then there's another 6 weeks of silence and then say something as they're trying to build out this plan. I mean, they've definitely taken the approach of, let's get the next 18 months planned out and be able to communicate a lot of really good information at one time. And so, again, just little tidbits of this give me a lot more hope that there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and it is all going to come to fruition at some point. And when that does happen, that everything will be super positive.
Coming from Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and dabbling in different card games, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't announce when their ban lists are going to be necessarily. They'll give you a rough estimate, but they'll say not before this date. And it's become almost a toxic presence in the community. And I think, the fact that they're addressing, hey, we're planning on stuff, we're still working things out, I think it's a good look.
Yeah, there's there's a ton of changes going on in the overall space of the game between coming up to set champs, and we imagine we're getting to the place now where set 8 is going to start being announced. We've seen a few more little artworks of the retail products, and a few more close-ups of different packages and different pack art and things like that. And so I feel like they're going to start coinciding things with that release. I think it's safe to say that there's going to be a big summer coming, I guess, is ultimately what I'm trying to get at. There's just there's a lot of stuff swirling around, and at some point that storm's going to get released, and when it does, I think it's just going to be a lot of good stuff coming.
Can't agree.
Love
the art for the
I wanted
next
to
two
give context for the Magic one, because I brought it up, and I was actually, I want to look it up because I'm kind of interested now. It looks like Magic does it every 3 months. So they, on their announcement, they said this is an effect, and the last one was March 31st. And then they're like, our next announcement's going to be June 30th. So that's exactly 3 months right at. So they just do that every 3 months, but it could be nothing, could be something, but like that's what they do. And that's what I would hope, just so I can kind of, you can have that in the back of your mind that, oh, if there ever was going to be a ban, it would be on the state. And then if it's not banned, then you know, we are free and gone. We're going to play whatever. And we got the next 3 months to grind it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I would imagine the next week or so we're gonna, have an episode starting to talk about set champs. But I think this is, a really good, opportunity to just like give initial thoughts on how this is gonna, really impact the meta. Obviously, we've talked about Diablo already, and we've talked about, probably songs and, potentially like Green Steel discard or even the Emerald Amethyst discard that's started to pop up a little bit. Having a lot more legs. But yeah, what do we see the next like phase of this meta being, and how what do we think that is going to change?
So I think we have some known quantities. We know songs. We know Purple Steel. We know Dog's going to be amazing. But I think we're going to see a nice little experimental period in the early parts of like this stuff getting discovered. I don't think either blue deck is dead. I think, I think Blue Steel still has all the tools it needs to be a tier 1 contender, in all honesty with you. But that's something we'll discover as things go on. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot of just like experimentation, a lot of people pushing the limits. Because deck building kind of has been a little stagnant for the last month. A lot of just like 10 card swaps in between top tier decks. And I think we're going to see some pretty big shakeups, and I'm excited.
Yep. Agree.
Forest Store champs, do not put Fortisphere or Flaversham in your deck.
That's
definitely going to be a first step. Put those in the closet.
Yeah, that's a very good concept to follow. So
I literally thought on my way driving home from work today, I literally thought to myself, I was like, oh, I'm going to need to go unsleeve those cards and put them away. Like, I don't know why I thought about that, but I was just like, it's like, I can put those up now, right next to the Buckies.
Right next to the Buckies.
I think that's a fair place to just, have them in like the Hall of Fame. I mean, or Hall of Fame, whichever one you want to consider it.
I like Flaversham. I think Flaversham was really cool for the moment, but definitely as the game progressed, you definitely see a pattern with Lorcana, because like the other like immediate thing I think of that's kind of a comparison to that is like you cannot play Sapphire without playing Flaversham. Same way kind of like with Amethyst. Like, are you really gonna play an Amethyst deck that doesn't play Fox? Like maybe you don't have the whole package in there, but there's like some of these cards that like it's been the identity of the color for as long as it's been around. Like if you're playing Ruby Amethyst, you can already probably pick out like the first 50 cards you're adding, right? Because it's majority of all those purple staples and everything. Right. And I feel like, yeah, that was Flaversham, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to put Popsicle and Flaversham in, probably Fishbone, maybe not sometimes, but I'm very excited. I don't think any deck is dead now. I think maybe they're definitely not in the same place that they were before. They just got to play Grab Your Swords.
So the next question then definitely is, I think we all agree that like, your Ruby Sapphire and your Sapphire Steel, it's not like, all right, well, just switch to another deck. Like, you can't play it anymore. The question more becomes, okay, how do they adapt? What do they do to change? And my initial thought was, well, honestly, Kiwi just got insane. Like, that was my initial take of this is, Mo, you said it that, Sapphire Steel's definitely not, in the grave. But I think you definitely changed the identity a little bit, and Kiwi's already shown to be strong. And one of its biggest, oppressors was Sisu Shift, and that got a little bit worse. So I think Kiwi honestly got a little more scary in my eyes.
Definitely. In the same sort of thought, I think the Burn Red Blue is going to be effectively the same deck, if not even a little better, because they don't have to deal with an opposing Flaversham now.
Say Burn Red Blue.
Yeah, like the DKP list.
Yeah, the
a Maui Shark list.
The Manor, yeah,
Burn.
Shark,
I don't know why I immediately thought of here. Y'all remember the Monopoly Blue Red? You know what that term means?
No, I have no idea.
Shout out to anyone who got that reference. It was a deck who I forget. I think this was maybe this was like first store champs, but it was blue red, but it played like every location.
Oh, yeah.
So like all it was like ramp, be prepared, and then you go like Manor, Aros Legacy, Agrabah.
Yeah,
like
Daniel actually talked about that one last time. I just didn't know it was called
Yeah.
Monopoly, but I guess it's Monopoly because of all the properties that you're just
Yes.
you're throwing out
Yes.
properties. Okay, I mean that's fair.
Yeah.
No,
I
that's
didn't
pretty
mean to
cool.
cut you off, Mo. You had something else?
No. But yeah, it's like if we just look at really easy ways to adapt, you just have the decks that are basically the same. Like we talked a little bit about, is Bell still going to see play in Kiwi? And I kind of think it does. I kind of think you just kind of switch the items around, and it's
Yep.
still such a strong turn
I
one
agree.
play in that deck.
Yep, I agree.
Because it's like, I will say, yeah, I thought about that too. Because it's like, okay, well, they were playing Tamatoa. Are they gonna cut it now? And I'm like, probably some. Like I can imagine, like, yeah, you just don't have all of them as you do, but like, I mean, you technically can still do Popsicle, and that's great to get back with Tamatoa. And then there are other one-drop items. You know, one card I immediately started thinking of was like Last Cannon has been seeing a lot of play, and that might continue. I don't know. I definitely have enjoyed playing it, but
yeah. This is the first like post Hiram Kiwi style deck that I saw, and it's from a traditional songs player Wochuk. But I thought this was really interesting too. I think that obviously Bell on one is still going to be extremely powerful, and you don't have to like worry about popping your items because you need it as a draw later. So there's just like no risk to going and going from that line. But yeah, it puts a big body on board early. If you're able to do it, you have a couple other items to help get it out fast if you need to. But otherwise, yeah, you just have like uber ramp, and you have more one drops in the sense of your happies, which you also then throw in the mine to do some of that damage that you need. So I thought this was a really interesting list to consider, in that kind of Diggy / Kiwi style, and think that it's going to be a potential problem to have to deal with in the future.
I wanted to give my opinion on what I think is going to happen to those decks.
Yeah.
My first opinion on blue red is I don't care what happens to it. Second opinion is on blue steel. I think Kiwi's gonna be good, and also I feel like there's a world where like whole new world decks are gonna be there. I would hate to like be like the deck's dead, but then Lamb is over here just pumping out whole new worlds like it's his God-given right. So like he's like the only person I ever see post up a whole new world blue steel now, and I'm sure they miss Flaversham, but like there has to be something there, right? There's just so many powerful cards in those colors that like you just aren't self-guided to this one playstyle. Maybe this opens up like a whole new world of blue steel.
Ooh, I honestly,
And
blue
it could be
steel
something
is,
sweet there.
yeah, blue steel is definitely back in the wheel world. I think there's a, and again, like this is really honestly just like right off the top, but you just replace your Flavershams with visions, and then you have like your pseudo aerial to find the whole new world to just refill. But yeah, I think in like a traditional blue steel world, you're very much just like it's back in the wheel. Like that's just where you are.
Which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, looking at how, at least like the early predictions of the meta. Like, I think Wheel's kind of back in flavor a little bit.
For sure.
Looking
for sure.
strong.
Okay, so next question then is like, what do we think got like Shadow nerfed and Shadow buffed because of this?
Okay, I've already thought about
Obviously,
this.
there are things that are going to have impacts that are getting better and worse because of it. And so I want to know what your guys' takes on like what else kind of got Shadow nerfed along with this. I think, for my, my 2 cents real quick is obviously the Tamatoas, I think got, just a little bit worse. They weren't touched technically on paper, but in practicality, obviously their abilities have a lot less impact because you are losing draw power from items and you're losing an impactful item. And so all of the synergies of cycling them through have a lot less impact. And so those cards at the top end don't have as much viability, at least in my opinion. But that's just, a quick example. So what do you guys think on like some shadow bans, or not shadow bans, but shadow nerfs and shadow buffs that came because of this?
I'll let you take this one first, Cody. I've got some ideas.
I think my binder got buffed because I can finally take out my playset of enchanted Diablos and enchanted Kitas and put them right back in the lemon lime. I'm not hiding any secrets. I'm 100% going to build lemon lime again. I never have to worry about blue deck ever playing a 4-drop Flaversham against me.
Golly, man, I hate it here. Like you guys are over here
I've
worried
gotten
about
I've gotten
Flaversham.
Japanese ones. I have 2 Japanese foil sudden chills. They're going in the deck. I am too excited about that.
I definitely think there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack here. Like when we're looking at how this is going to create like a ripple effect. Like everyone's mind immediately goes to Diablo, but I think one of Diablo's biggest strengths this format and why it was basically the only non-blue deck to see some success, was because there were some critical choke points you could hit these Sapphire decks in before like they really get themselves established. A lot of times before they can play a crab, sometimes you can hit the Flaversham out of their hand. And I do think discard's going to be in a little bit more of an interesting position moving forward. So I guess I'm countering Cody here with my statement, but I think there might be a world where it runs into some more unfavorable matchups now that it's easy pickings got taken away.
I hope he's wrong, just because discard is very unfun to play against, especially the key to the end of the sea stuff. I mean, even if you're, not hyper aggro in the sense of like you're an actual hyper aggro deck, but if you get off to a really hot start and you hit your Daisy, you hit your Smee, whatever the case might be for your aggro flare of choice, and then they just key to under the CU. And you have no cards in hand at that point, it's like, cool, I just lose. It doesn't matter how many turns I have left because they have Amuses on board. They, play their songs, they bounce whatever, they do their thing. And Cody's over here like, yeah, I'm going to go do my thing and beat everybody.
Shout out Jordan, top 8, Dallas, Fort Worth.
Yep.
We are going to be the reason Prince Sean gets banned.
Friend of the podcast,
Please.
friend of the team for sure. But yeah, I
guess there's something like I've just been kind of running through Dreamborn, but there's like some immediate cards I guess I keep thinking of. Like I think sudden subtle little buff Tinkerbell might be better now. But like Tinkerbell has kind of fallen off. But if you're not as worried about like bigger controller decks and things are smaller. But you're the biggest Tinkerbell hater ever, so I'm not going to listen to your opinion.
I don't think it is though, because I think in order to do this, like Mo said, I think that the meta speeds up a little bit, and the current like quote fast meta decks have shown their speed and ability is based off of going wide and diversifying threats and having really high willpower, so that you have to challenge in. And if you are a red deck and you play Be Prepared, then you have to deal with locations that are still out there and have to come back and figure that out. And so I don't think Tinkerbell deals well with that.
Tinkerbell deals with wide boards, can shoot birds out of the sky, and I'm pretty sure it can attack locations. So I'm just saying you kind of just sold the Tinkerbell.
Sure, but let's just pull up Tinkerbell here.
I don't want to have an anti-Tinkerbell slander podcast.
I'm not slandering, but like
I had a whole list I was gonna read off. We don't need to harp on how terrible Tinkerbell is.
I'm just saying she does 3 damage across 2 turns, and so if you have X4s,
no. If your opponent has 99 puppies in play, that is dealing 99 damage when you play him.
Okay, I'm talking about to a specific target that you're trying to actually remove for the board, not just put chip damage on cards. But okay, what? Let's hear some other ones, because you're right. I could go on and on and on and be a Tinkerbell hater forever, and it's crazy because I want to play Tinkerbell. I love Tinkerbell in theory. I just don't like it in practice.
I feel like Kita could be a lot better. I mean, definitely if decks are maybe they are not able to do the shift Sisu line as often anymore. I really don't know where Blue Red's going to end up with this. I don't play that deck ever, so I hope it just like falls off, but I'm sure it won't. Because Sisu
nerfed. Nobody wants to anymore.
That was another thing I was gonna get at, but like I think Kita, if you're trying to be the deck that has that big explosive turn of like playing your Cricky to wipe out your opponent's board, Kita's like the opposite, right? Like I'm gonna play this Kita and you just can't challenge my stuff now. Could be really sweet. I do think Oswald is kind of in an interesting spot where, like, I feel like, yes, there was an obvious Oswald build that was going around with blue steel and obviously just pumping out a bunch of stuff, but I feel like there is a world that maybe like a Ruby Sapphire Oswald 4 workshop deck exists where you are just kind of dumping everything. Maybe the new big blue red shift bell um, is like that's your designated line to get to, you know. I don't know how that exactly works without Flaversham, but I feel like there's just something there. Maybe Royal Tantrum shows up. Like imagine if there's like a combo turn where
You
you
never
go
know.
Royal Tantrum and then you play your free Chernobog Bell, slam it into play.
You never know.
Um, so I feel like there's something interesting there. And then also, because maybe it's not as crucial to hate on items anymore, maybe that means Oswald decks would survive better because your opponent like probably is not playing hate. You know, like I feel like, yeah, that deck just immediately concedes to a Platinum of Find them Platinum, but like who's playing Find them Platinum in their deck after today? I feel like it's not going to be a
Nobody.
ton.
No, definitely not.
Depends on how the blue decks adapt. Like workshop could be strong, but
That's what I'm
you won't
saying.
play the
Like
best item for
it's
it.
that weird spot, right? Like is it powerful enough to keep you into the game? And if it is, then like you get back into that same problem I feel like we currently were in about where item hate is just kind of terrible. You just never really feel great about doing it unless you're just blowing out your opponent. It never feels good just to randomly shoot a popsicle here and there. Um, so maybe yeah,
There's,
Benja
I,
doesn't ever show up.
you also can't, exclude the fact that we still have Scrooge that you can play for free through items. We also have Sheriff of Nottingham, which you can play free through items, and so the ability to have bodies and items on board didn't change. So the overall synergies that you get through those types of strategies are still there. It's just getting to that late game got a little bit harder because you don't have as good of low cost items, and so you have to figure out how to navigate that, new, that new, I guess scenario a little stronger than you had to before. Also, I'm just gonna throw this out here real quick. I don't, I just have I have Dreamborn sorted by like the most popular cards, and just looking through everything. I want to know what Psycho is out there that's cooking up the red green Queen deck. Like, why are these Queen cards like so high up on the list? Like, what are we missing that
Because they're
people are cooking out here?
we're not
Please.
missing anything. Those people are psychopaths.
Okay,
Anyone's allowed to enter Dreamborn. There's no parameters to block people. So people like Mo are allowed to wander in and cook something up.
All right, so this was gonna be my next, like, not even a shadow buff, just like a buff. But all the cards that Sisu absolutely murdered. It's not like Sisu's gonna be gone. It's still gonna be this omnipresent
sure.
threat. But there's a lot more like potential fun cards we can have now that they don't have infinite removal plus infinite cards. That Queen actually is a really interesting card. Like it enables a lot
We
of
talking this one?
Emerald cards. Like oh no, sorry,
The Queen of Hearts.
Well,
other one.
yeah, you said the Queen.
Christmas one.
This one, the green red one.
Yeah.
I mean,
See, like
you're definitely on something with this one, that's for sure. But
on something.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest. I had no idea there was a popular filter on here, and that has changed my perspective on Dreamborn. So I'm so glad this is a place of learning.
For anybody else watching / listening too, if you like to peruse through Dreamborn like we do, there is a popular filter, and it does it based on how many decks that those cards are currently being, utilized in. And so, yeah, somebody out there is cooking up.
Actually, everyone's a psychopath. Literally, the top cards are the Steel Song and then purple green Diablo deck.
Yeah,
like is this all that people are messing with?
Yeah, purple green Diablo has definitely been a thing recently.
Why is Fix-It Felix higher than like I don't know Magic Broom?
Somebody
Turn a block follower.
We're definitely Mo. We'll come back to the Queen real quick. We definitely got you off that, but like Rapunzel and Rapunzel's Tower are on like the top row of this. If you're just listening, and so it feels like Talman Purple's CCS deck still has some like lingering effects here, and I don't know if people think that, like, red blue's going to die now or not be fast enough to be able to deal with these really quick decks. And so it's like, let's just go all in on Talman Purple's Rapunzel Tower, protect your things deck and not worry about red at all. Because if that's the case, then yeah, I mean, I guess this one is pretty good. But okay, I'm actually
oh wait, real quick. I know. I just want to never come back to this topic. Is this saying that Calhoun is the most popular card? Because if that's what this is saying,
theoretically, yes,
pretty
that's what it's
big.
saying. Is that this is currently the most
That's
popular
pretty sick.
card. So, but okay, so
I support anyone
green,
who
red,
putting that in
the
every
Queen
single
of
steel deck.
Hearts, unpredictable bully, shift 3, 5 cost uninkable. Whenever another character is played, put a damage counter on them. Like, what are you like? First off, why is this red green? I'm not really sure what that has to do with anything. But why is this good?
What's a certain red card that always finds its way into decks I build, Zach?
Be prepared.
No, not that one.
Well, then you're building them wrong. I hate to tell you.
What red card always finds its way into? I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with damage.
Goffle.
Do you know there's a shift Robin Hood that gains a lore pip for every damaged character on the opponent's side of the board? And so you can like do some
I guess there's a Shimmering Skies Robin Hood.
Yeah. So basically, it's just like
the shift 3 one.
Damage matters with Go-Go.
Oh, okay. So you're back on the Go-Go hype train, which we knew, but you're like really cooking up some crazy Go-Go stuff that would have never.
Yeah,
even
like, are you even kidding me? Like, we know Mo is sitting there at like 2 a.m. looking at Dreamborn, just looking at any card that has to deal with damage. He's like, oh wow, mosquito bite. That's kind of interesting. That's one more Go-Go point.
That's. So there's a huge amount. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked at the Emerald card pool outside of like the popular stuff, but there's
I have because I used to be, believe it or not, for the long-term listeners of the podcast, I used to be an Emerald gamer. So it wasn't very long and it wasn't very successful, but it did happen.
Yeah, he's a fake fan. Mo's the original Lemon Limer, by the way.
I'm not saying I'm not like claiming to be the OG. I'm just claiming that there was a time where I thought Emerald was really, really cool and I tried to make it work. And I was just, these were back in the days where it wasn't very good and every card that was decent was uninkable. And so you just gave up on it.
Cody was my first intentional draw in a Lorcana tournament. And I was a Lemon Lime gamer back in the day. That was fun.
Yeah, in Missouri. We don't even live in Missouri. But that was very interesting how worlds collide.
Yeah. But no, I do think, obviously it's not going to like make a huge difference to these decks. Red can still do red things. Like Sisu's still going to be a card. I think one of the biggest like buffs is to the amethyst color. And, just got to say it, Ruby Amethyst. Like, the fact that you can go blow for blow with these red decks and take out their threats and they run out of steam faster than you do because there's no Flaversham now. I think Amethyst decks in general are going to see a lot of success in this upcoming format, especially I
was going to bring that up at some point. Like, where do we think Ruby Amethyst lands after all this? Because it definitely has seen a massive, massive, massive step back, and all of the Ruby Amethyst truthers have left the ship. Do they all come back? Is Bell still enough of a deterrent to like keep them in check, or is it like back in full force now?
I hope they disappear and fall off as well. That's all I was gonna say. Red, Blue, and Ruby Amethyst is always the tier of why do these people exist? What should not invite them to the party?
I think the deck has always had just like the highest power ceiling in the game. Just like if you go to the latest of late games, red purple's just the best deck because they can bounce their big threats and replay them turn after turn and just
True.
And I definitely think they're going to see a little bit more love. It'll be tough because they already weren't in a stellar position from last set. I do think
they didn't gain anything this set really. Maybe like some of those queen stuff, but like that obviously wasn't enough to.
I mean, I feel like the card Soldier and the Queen of Hearts are like the two cards that everybody goes on about, and I don't feel like those are really all that great because they don't put a lot of early lore pressure.
Well, I think Card Soldiers is for Mufasa.
Yeah,
Bossa loved that card.
you're right. I mean, the Queen of Hearts is definitely more for the Ruby Amethyst, but I have seen it in a couple decks just to.
Hey, not in a top 8.
No, and again, but you haven't seen Ruby Amethyst at all in a top 8 aside from the locations deck, and so
Yeah. Besides the
Have we
Monopoly
seen
burn
that one?
versions.
But yeah. Anyways, I think it definitely comes back. I think this like breathes the life in the deck that the lifers of Ruby Amethyst need to start to figure out how to make it work again. But yeah, we'll see.
I have a small list. I just want to rapid fire these. These are some of my initial thoughts. I think Cobra got worse just because if there's more steel running around, I feel like you
True.
wanted to play that into blue red.
Very good call.
Mushu, maybe. I feel like red steel. I don't really know what the red steel meta breakdown looks like, but I have to imagine they didn't love red blue. So maybe if that's kind of falling off, maybe it's better. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this one. I think Mushu. I mean, I won't take any but 2 seconds on this, but I think Mushu and Red Steel in general, or Ruby Steel in general, has very much to do with how fast the meta is. Because they take 3 or 4 turns to like really get set up, and if they can get set up and then pop off, then it obviously goes. But so yeah, we'll have to see the speed of the meta on that one. But I agree.
Zeus, I think got better. Zeus was already a great card, but now it's like #1 enemy it couldn't murderate was Flaversham. So now that it can just kind of moderate everything, I have to imagine that's the most premium form of removal.
Yeah.
There was another one. How do y'all feel about Maui Shark? I know we kind of briefly talked about that, but I feel like it's going to be kind of in a weird spot because I feel like it did not like playing in Zeus decks, and I feel like we're about to.
This guy for you here.
Yeah,
if we're back into a very steel heavy
good.
meta, which I feel like again, this is by no means like my ranking or have I thought through it like fully yet, but we talked about songs, we talked about a potential Emerald Steel discard coming back. You just talked about Purple Steel. Mo talked about that at the very beginning as well. Like if those are the 3 top decks, then everything's steel. And I think we all talked about Blue Steel continuing to live on and Kiwi being a very big problem, and they are all basically a 4 of Pete deck. And so I think the Shark does get just a slight nerf just based on everything switching back to steel, which is the best check for the Shark.
Yeah.
Robin Hood shift line ups stonks because red's maybe not as consistent.
Yeah, he replaces himself too when he dies.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of all these cards like if you are in a steel,
challenge.
Yeah, so I think, does that mean Medusa comes back more? I don't know.
I don't know.
He's already been here.
See, that doesn't answer the consistency problem where they don't get that lovely draw they used to have. So like the red cards are still very good, but now it's like how easily are they going to be able to find those certain situational removal and even get to that point? So
true.
That's the thing I don't care to go find out. I hope someone else on Twitter will do it for me and I can know if I hate it or not. I guess those were like the big ones. New Aurora, maybe that's better now.
Yeah.
I thought through that one too, actually, because I want that one to be good, because I like the enchanted.
Cindy better than ever, I guess. I don't know.
I think, yeah.
Actually, Big Cindy is something I mentioned earlier. I actually think Big Cinderella is probably going to be the premium move for Steel Song decks now, because I feel like it was good into more controlling decks, but I feel like Steel Song is going to love slamming this down against other lower to the ground decks. And it's kind of the same philosophy I have about why I like Tinkerbell. It's just because I want to be the deck that has the Cinderella on my side of the board if I'm trying to punch down. And
Fair.
I feel like that's just where we always were, right? And then I feel like Cindy kind of fell off because of Coil and Sisu stuff was just too much and you never had time to do it. But so maybe that's slowed down now. Maybe you want to be the big Cindy deck again.
Fair.
These are just me spitballing here.
Okay, Mo.
I think
I'm cutting him off. I'm giving you some
new Shift Pete, Pirate Pete.
Pirate Pete. I like
Pirate Pete. Probably pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think if your Emerald Steel, your Amber Steel are going, if everybody assumes that those are the top 2 and starts to shift to those really fast, then I think Pirate Pete definitely gets a lot of sunshine here very quickly, at least. For how long it stays, I don't know, but we'll find out.
Judy Hops, turn any of your 1-drop items into a Fortisphere?
Oh, wait. Which
Yeah.
Judy Hopps?
The one that shoots an item and
Yeah.
the controller draws a card.
Oh, I was like, wait.
That's when Mo wasn't playing.
Oh, this was the thing that was Hiram before Hiram.
Well, this was around before.
No, that was the same set. That was the same set as
Yeah,
Flower
it,
Sham.
it was back in set. I mean, this was set 2. But yeah, back in set 2 before your dimes and everything, your Ruby Sapphires were running Judy, Nick Wilde, and Hiram to just like cycle your popsicles.
Speedway race location deck. I don't even know what you call it. Maybe it's on the ups.
Ooh, that's an
Shout out
interesting
to all
one.
of shout out to all of our pirate players. You don't have to worry about playing against Flavershims anymore. I don't know if that was a problem for you. I hope it was, and you're happy today.
Okay, Mo. Like I said, I'm cutting Cody off. Back to you.
Okay.
What are your shadow buffs here?
So, Shadow, let's see. I just gave a Shadow buff, so let's talk a little bit about a Shadow nerf.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
think with the uprising of a lot of these steel decks, I think a lot of aggro-oriented things are going to be a little bit out of place. A lot of the aggro decks that aren't full of, 4 health questers.
Dogs,
Yeah, aggro decks that aren't dogs.
non-dog aggro.
Yeah, I can agree with that one for sure.
I see a world where my favorite deck, green purple, is playable and potentially a good pick again, but it definitely has to adapt. I don't know if you can do the thing I did with all the 1-drops in meta that we're currently about to walk into. You just kind of got to prepare yourself for everything that a steel focused meta has,
Yeah, you actually just kind of like teed me up for my next question. So does that make Ward like stronger than ever? We've talked about how Ward is like insanely strong to begin with, but I feel like you're right. I feel like if you're doing targeted removal as your main swing function to give yourself some tempo, then that makes Ward even better, right? Like let's just look at Ward here.
Oh, yeah. There's one in particular I want you to look at. I think he's like a 9 cost.
We don't have to look at this.
There he is. Robin Hood.
Oh,
Is he
ooh.
Is a
okay?
problem.
What is? Are we like lobbying for Robin Hood here? What is happening? You mentioned 2 Robin Hoods now, not the steel one.
It's a 6/6 with Ward. Holy crap! I was looking at
he
this
quest
guy
for
here.
4.
He's just
Oh yeah,
really
quest for
hard to
4.
enable.
Yeah,
So
I think he was the first card to quest for 4.
no, it
Really?
was that other it was the other Robin Hood. Where's the other? Oh, that other Robin Hood doesn't have Ward.
Well, no, but those are the same set. But I think I might need to check that.
I don't
But
think they
they're
were the same set, were they?
yeah, they're both Shimmering Skies.
This one, set 3.
Oh.
Oh, that one.
Daydreamer, Robin Hood Daydreamer. This is what
That
shout
was
out
set
Michael.
3.
This is what Michael beat me with in the final Stitch set champs in the finals. This card gave me very big amounts of tears, I guess, for a weekend after he dropped that on me, and I couldn't deal with it because I couldn't find a Zeus with my Ariel. But yeah, I think Ward is something to like really start to look out for again. You played Prince Philip and Continentals and had a lot of success with that one because you were afraid of some of the steel stuff, but also it had 3 strength, so it avoided the Sisu. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of interesting Ward stuff you can do now because a steel heavy meta with no sword, assuming stays the same, is all targeted, and what's the best way to get around targeting removal is Ward.
Yeah, Triton's Decree.
Fair.
Triton's Decree?
Yeah.
Fair. I mean, if we want to go down that route,
No, I don't even know if we need to.
Triton's Decree, for those who don't remember off the top of your head because you're not a degenerate and remember all these very non-meta cards, is the 1-cost uninkable action that says each opponent chooses one of their characters and deals 2 damage. So it's basically a get around Ward, fire the cannons.
I mean, to be fair, I only remember this card because when I was playing a lot of Lemon Lime, I always just heard the comments of, "You're gonna make me put Triton's Decree in my deck so I can get rid of Prince John."
Fair.
So, something notable that is also one of the icks in the room is, does green blue discard kind of make a return? Like, we're talking about Ward being strong.
Mo, this is a safe space. We don't have to go down this road again.
I'm a geyser gamer, but I feel like I don't know. Bend to My Will might be ready to go again, and I hate that.
Maybe.
Yeah, honestly, so give everybody listening a little bit of insight. Mo for a couple weeks there in the LCCC and into a couple of the first set 7 tournaments was very much on the green blue I guess route to try to figure it out with a geyser. And the initial thoughts that we had was geyser disallows your red blue opponents to be able to play their finishers because they have so much way to dig through their decks and find those answers that even if you do discard them, that they're still going to be able to get to it. And geyser disallows that because they won't have any they won't have the ink necessary versus the cards necessary. Well, without Flaversham, you take away their cards, then they can really like get back in the game, and they don't have that consistency to get to that top end like we've already talked about 3 or 4 times. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're back on like a bend green blue build, and there is something there. I don't know. Again, I think a lot of that has to do with the speed of the meta and the ability to adapt to some of that early pressure. But there's definitely a world where that could be a thing, because what is the one thing that green blue does better, or that never had to rely on Hiram for? It's draw, because you have Clarabelle. So
Yeah.
maybe there is something there.
Now, before we leave this page, I have to also discuss another deck that I think is buffed into playable category slash, fringe C tier. I think puppies. Legitimate.
I knew that's where you were going, because Perdita was on the was on there.
That card is actually could be good now. Like, I'm not saying red's going anywhere, like, still, but like, is that card not pretty well positioned against steel decks?
I think
Perdita,
it's pretty terrible.
The 4-cost inkable ability that says whenever this character quests, you may pay 2 less for your next puppy character, and your puppy characters gain ward. I mean,
let's think about this, guys. No, what a crazy effect. We can cheat out puppies. They have ward, and we're gonna play that free 2/3 vanilla puppy. Wow, guys, we did it. What a great card we got into play. We took turn 5 to play a free 2/3. We win.
I think if we couldn't make Amber Sapphire Heroes work, which we tried quite hard at certain times, because teammate Devin, shout out Devin, was very much on the Amber Sapphire Heroes list. I don't know. Maybe this gives that more, like, maybe it's not the Amber Sapphire puppies. Maybe it's the Amber Sapphire Heroes, like, actually has like a semblance of legs to move forward with now, because it's relatively aggressive, has some higher willpower bodies, and can quest for a lot, and even technically ramp, I guess, if you wanted to get to some of those higher end things. But yeah, Alice is going to be a problem. I see Alice. We talked about Kiwi, and Alice is obviously a staple in Kiwi. Alice will be a problem with the ward. Why is Scar the second most popular warded character? Like, yeah, like, what are these people?
I'm so glad you came back to this topic. So I've been
board.
looking through the popular list, and I found Bucky on here, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. 4 cards down from Bucky is Wreck-It Ralph, the legendary that blows up items and locations. So Bucky is more popular than that Wreck-It Ralph. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I somebody's cooking something out there, that's for sure. But yeah, it's. I think Ward definitely gets a lot stronger, I guess, is ultimately where I'm getting at. And shadow buffs is definitely in the Ward category in my eyes. But
I did want to make a comment though. I don't know if it's strictly saying that they got better. They just don't have to. I mean, I think Be Prepared's still going to be around. I don't think that's going to go away like at all. So I'm not even in that category yet. I will say the downside of most warded characters is they do not have really good fighting potential. Like a lot of the characters that we are seeing as like mainstays, like let's just kind of run through what we see right here. Prince John has 1 attack, Muses has 2 attack, Alice has 1 attack, Cogs has 2 attack, and they are definitely not good cards if you're behind or you're trying to fight that board presence. So I do think there might still have a problem dealing with like more aggressive strategies. So I think it is going to be kind of dependent on how fast everything starts moving.
yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Ultimately, I agree. I think that a lot of it does depend on the speed of the game and how flexible you can be. Obviously, like you said, Be Prepared is still going to be around. I think the difference in Be Prepared is that, you know, if you're a fast deck and you can replenish your resources, then obviously you have the staying power to be able to finish out the game. You know, I think that historically those really fast decks haven't had the resource advantage to get, you know, to continue the push after a Be Prepared. And if there are ways to do that now, then that, you know, would be the downside of Be Prepared, is that, you know, the opponent obviously loses all the tempo and all of the momentum they've built on their side, where Sisu doesn't. And so Be Prepared doesn't worry me near as much as it used to.
Well,
I guess is all I'm getting at.
I also, when I say that, I also mean Sisu. I think those cards are gonna stay
Sure.
because they're just insane, right?
Sure.
But hey, you know what deck is good about replenishing resources afterwards? The deck, the dog deck, where the dogs do the ritual to summon a demon after they perish to a wipe. Chernobog shows up.
Good old Cherna dogs. Yeah. I think that's pretty much all I've got, Mo. Cody, you guys got any other just like final like crazy thoughts on, you know, how this is going to change the meta? Any other like things that people should be thinking through as they, you know, start to contemplate, you know, what to bring to set champs, what to bring to their next tournaments? Because again, this is effective today. Like, you know, if you're in a tournament next weekend, then
For this weekend,
I would, yeah, that's what I mean. Like in you know, 3 or 4 days, whatever it is now, I would imagine your LGS is gonna, you know, adapt to those rules as well. So you got to adapt quick. So, you know, what's the I guess midterm? Give me your, you know, your 1 minute spiel on what you think like the next couple weeks are going to look like, and then where things will settle in the long term.
If I was going to a tournament this weekend and I was aspiring to win, the decks that I would be prepared to see are Chernodog. I think that deck's really well positioned against Steel, and it's just really well positioned to be the de facto aggro deck of the meta. I would be prepared for Kiwi Bird, which is, you know, a little bit, it's aggro, but it's not the same.
it's aggro that does not fear Sisu as much as maybe it used to, which I think is scary.
Agree.
That is scary.
Agree.
I would be afraid of Purple Steel. I think Purple Steel is kind of gonna definitely be one of the more problematic decks. It's just got answers, and it has just the resources to keep churning out threats turn after turn. And, you know, I don't think I would be overly prepared to see the ramp Sapphire decks, but I wouldn't assume they're not going to show up. People can still, like, you've won games without Hiram in the past. People are going to try to make it work. They have $50 Tamatoas in their pockets. They really need to utilize.
Or 400
or $300 Tamatoas in their.
Or
Hey, they haven't dropped that far. They were 400. They went down to 380. I haven't checked it since then. I'm not going to.
Something else y'all should know, you can also sort, we talked about you could sort Dreamborn by popular, but you can sort TCG player by best selling and seeing what money moves people are making that day. Really fun.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I guess I have a very small spiel about the meta if I was playing this weekend, but I feel kind of liberated to test some stuff. I feel like I definitely love a refresh. I'm definitely am someone who appreciates ban lists. Like, I'll take it in stride, even if it was something that I like to do. I can only imagine next time you see me on the podcast, I will be complaining about something new. So I'm sure there's something to complain about, but I feel like I'm excited and willing to test out this new format. And I definitely feel like everyone else should be positive too. If anything, this just opens up a new door for you to start testing some new things.
Yep, I think that's fair. And again, that was like their whole, again, you know, like just wrapping this up back to where we started. I mean, that was their whole messaging, is that they wanted, you know, to like increase creativity or influence creativity within the meta and not rely on these staples that they felt was a little too overpowerful.
They were talking to me. They were talking right to my heart.
So yeah, ultimately, I think that's where we're going to be. And, you know, with no DLCs announced yet, you know, they said communication is coming. We assume that the next, you know, meta that the DLCs will be in is going to be set 8. Hopefully it's that soon, at least at this point. So yeah, that'll give us a new set worth of cards and a new, you know, I would say like foundation of what we consider the best cards in the set. So that, yeah, I think this is just a very good, strong place to be if you want to have some creativity and find something new that really works, because the floor is open now to go, brew whatever you want. Mo, sign us off.
Well, I'm glad to be back here today. It's been an excellent, y'all, I had a wonderful day today. It was great. It was fantastic, actually.
If you're a Sapphire fan and you are saddened by the Hiram ban, do not let Mo's happiness deter you from continuing to follow along, because he's just a hater. I'm on your side. We're not all Sapphire haters here.
I gotta say this before we go. The only thing I'm gonna miss is the tears of all the Ruby Sapphire players that I've been along the way. All right. Hey, y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Wait. I gotta say one last thing. I want to sign off too. If you get to have that. I was under the sea Bucky's drowning those beavers. I drowned rats.
Squirrel.
I can't wait for my next target to come around. Squirrel, beaver, rodent. They're all rats at the end of the day, and they are on the ban list.
Oh, God. Hide your pets around Cody. All right. Take it easy, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll catch y'all next time.